Welcome to the RebChat, the Creative Entrepreneurs. And today I'm so excited to introduce a remarkable athlete and a dedicated professional, Harry Williams. Harry is a renowned English rugby union player, currently playing as a tight head prop for the top 14 side Pau Rugby in Pau. And his career spans from his early days at Whitgift School in South London through to Premiership and European glory with the Exeter Chiefs and international success with England. Harry's journey is one of resilience, skill, and unwavering commitment. We're going to dive into how he's developed the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual strengths and resilience to perform at this elite level. Welcome, Harry. How are you doing?
Hey, Cathy, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, so happy that we're doing this. We've talked about it for a while.
Yeah,
So
same.
just wanted to acknowledge, and you just told me that you've got furniture all around you, so there's another move for you into
Yeah,
another
it's
home.
been quite a lot of movement over the last year. It's the fourth time I went from Montpellier. I went from Exeter to where I've been for a long time, very settled, to Montpellier, and now after a year I came here to Pau. So it's been quite a lot of, I wouldn't say turbulence, but a lot of movement, a lot of mobility.
A lot of mobility. And
Yeah.
now you're at Pau, so this is a new fixture for you in
Yeah,
your
it's completely new. It came around very. I was going to stay at Montpellier for another season, but it didn't really ever get going my season there, and I wasn't really getting much game time. And an opportunity came up at Pau literally with the last game of the season, so it all happened within about 4 or 5 days. So by the time I was coming back to the UK for my off season, I was going to Pau, and it's been good, and I've got my first game for them this Saturday.
amazing. So we're going to go through a bit of your own journey.
Yeah,
Many things you've learned, not only how to play the game at a superb level, but how to develop yourself, which is what I'm most interested in. And I've known you for a while, Harry, because our
yeah.
families go back. I've known you for a while, but we've never had this discussion before. So it's
Mm.
going to be new to me to hear this. So I know that you studied, I think it was English at university. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was English and sports science. It was a sort of
Yeah.
dual honours. It wasn't a
Okay.
great degree, but yeah.
Okay. But I know you did study that. So what inspired you to pursue rugby as a career?
Uh, it was always just something that I really wanted to do. To be honest with you, like you know, I knew it was going to be difficult, but it was always I was just very focused on doing that, and it was something that I believed that I could do. Um, you know, and I effectively after university, I went to play for Jersey, who were a championship team, so it was second tier in England. It wasn't from the top division, and I said to myself basically, I'm going to spend I think it was 2 or 3 years. At that point, I was turning 23 when I would go into Jersey, and I said, all right, I'll give myself 2 or 3 years in the championship, and if nothing comes of it, then I'll get another job, get a job that's not because I didn't want to sort of stay playing below the top tier for like an extended period of time. And luck, it happened for me after a season. I got signed to Exeter from Jersey, so it worked out really well.
And in that period, so there was this dream I could be a professional rugby player. There's a kind of a suck it and see attitude. If this doesn't work out, I'll find something else. But it
Mm.
was, your heart, you really desired this. That's what I also get that. But you're also going in with the mindset that if it doesn't work, you'll do something else. Is that right?
Yeah, it was strange though, but I don't want to sound arrogant saying this. I always believed that I could, and I did think it was going to happen. Like, and I just I don't want to say that I knew because it's not really like that, but I really did believe deep down in my heart that it could happen for me. Um, and it's been awesome. But I was thinking about it actually earlier. Maybe a week or two ago. This is the 10th season I've had as a full time player, and the experience I've had of playing has been so. It's been more than I ever thought it was going to be. But yeah, I did always think that I could play at top level.
And I think when we talk about resilience and also that belief system, that knowing is deeper than thinking, isn't it? It's like, and it's a deeper level. So I wanted to ask you about the mental skills.
Mm.
It's a very mentally demanding and tough sport at the level that you play. So what do you do, or what have you done to cultivate that mental toughness, to keep the performance at that consistent high that you need to do?
There's a few things that some have come in more recently, and some things because when I was younger, it was more when I initially started the excitement of doing everything because it had like a real originality to it because I hadn't done it before. So all the games, the experiences, playing in finals, losing finals, winning finals, it was felt very new and very, very fresh. So as time's gone on, it does, it doesn't stay that way forever. So as you become more experienced, your attitude to everything changes a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I've found, which has benefited me a lot, is like having a pattern to like what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing what every day, this is the training that I have to do. This is what I want to get through. This is non-negotiable sort of before I leave for training in the morning. And in the evening, how I'm going to structure it like throughout the week. So every week has like a certain flow to it. And then I've sort of tried different things as I've gone along. And then I've basically just kept the things that I see as to say, well, not that I feel that I want to do, because I think you can't, for example, like stretching, like some players really enjoy like static stretching, like long, spending ages. But I've just never been able to do it. I find it really boring and really dull.
Mm.
Whereas breath work, for example, is something that I've done for about 5 years now. Loads of different kind of like holotropic breathing, Wim Hof,
Okay, just
shorter.
for the listeners who don't know what that
Sorry,
is, just what that is, holotropic breathing. Just
holotropic breathing. Yeah,
yeah.
like very long, extended periods of hard inhalations and hard exhalations. And then Wim Hof he's I don't know, where is he from? He's from one of the
I
Nordic
think he's
countries.
from, yeah, you're right. I think he's from the Netherlands, I think.
Yeah, he's from one of the Nordic countries. I should really know
Yeah.
that. I'm a bit of a fanboy of his. He does a lot of like ice exposure, cold exposure, heat exposure, and then like same like extended exhales and extended inhales and exhales. And I would recommend to anyone if they want to try breath work to go to him first, because it was where I started and started it 5 years ago, and then I've been doing it every morning since.
So this is
Basically,
your personal practice. It's not what the rugby has, it's something you've adopted. And just for
yeah.
anybody listening thinking you're doing it, what benefits have you noticed of doing this over an extended period of this as your part of your practice and pattern?
I think it's good. Actually, I think it's good because it's time. It's effectively meditative time because you're doing something where you're only focusing on that, and it's very difficult. If you do just try one of the sessions, you'll see afterwards. You do feel it can make you feel like different kinds of ways. And I, what I've actually found through any of the stuff, and including the sport itself, is it's when you're away, you're disconnected from thinking about other things. Because I'm quite bad for myself. Being on your phone, watching TV, or gossiping with someone, or thinking about other things, about 100 different other things. But when you're focused on one practice that you're doing there and then, I think it's really good for your mind as a whole. Which is, to be fair, what I've found as time's gone on that I've enjoyed through playing the sport. It gives me an outlet to do that. It's actually something that I think after I finish playing, I'll have to refine again, because I actually think it's something that everyone could do with.
Mm.
And it's one of the main positives of doing hard physical activity. So that's why I would advocate it for anyone really.
So one of the things you've done is do this breathing and the Wim Hof method. Is there anything else that you've taken into your personal practice as a way of life?
Yeah, I would. Something that it sounds a bit strange, but it really helped my quality of sleep was taping my mouth when I slept,
Okay.
because it sounds
You mean
quite
actually
bizarre.
putting tape over your mouth?
You can get sleeping tape, yeah, and you put a bit of tape over your mouth, so when you sleep, you nasal breathe.
Okay.
Would recommend that.
Okay. Well,
Also, cold and heat is the main ones, and that will be most evenings I do that.
So do you go diving into a pond or something like that, or is it
No,
in the shower? How do you get that?
when I lived in on Dartmoor, there were loads of well, not on Dartmoor. When I lived in Exeter, there were loads of really good spots on Dartmoor, and there was the beach nearby as well where you could go to. But now where I am, there's a real good sauna with a cold plunge sort of spa which we have access to as players. And I would try and go there. I would try if I could go. I would go every night. But as it sort of different things come up and you can't do that. And another thing which isn't really given any sort of like airtime or something to do would be fasting. Try and fast twice a week, just to try and sort of like clean out sort of any toxic cells or anything like that. Try and do like a 20-hour fast twice a week, I think.
So a lot of the things you're doing are, I mean, there's the inflammation prevention. A lot of it seems quite preventative. It's almost keeping yourself in tip-top condition and doing the extra. These are all things above and beyond the actual training practice, if I understand, Harry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of players who do a lot more. Like there are some players who are really, really, super dialed in with all of their practices and their professionalism and stuff like that. But these are just things that I find that I've tried experimenting with lots of different things, but these are things that I see as sustainable and that I want to continue doing.
Yeah.
And I've also found like they have a lot of bang for their buck.
Well, and I think there is this experimental approach. Let's see if it works, and if it does, let's carry on.
Yeah.
To any of the things
definitely.
that you yeah. So, given that you are, what you do, setbacks is part and parcel of the rugby game. There was a big, I guess, disappointment for you. I mean, I heard about it in 2019. So dealing with setbacks generally in life is absolutely what you have to do. But there's the exposure for you because the papers will report it. There will be pundits talking about it, all that sort of thing. So how have you dealt with all that, Harry, if I might ask?
Yeah. So just for anyone who's listening, I didn't get picked for the World Cup, which was in 2019, which was obviously very upsetting at the time. But it's actually strange because after that, I probably had one of my best seasons that I've ever had. And I think it was because it was so grueling, the training beforehand, that I was in very good condition going into the season. And what helped me initially, straight after the setback, was being able to play immediately because there were games at the club. So I didn't have to wait very long to get back into training and back into playing, which at the time, because I sort of, we had 2 weeks. As soon as I found out the news, we had 2 weeks off. And I remember thinking afterwards, like, why didn't I go away, or why did I not go on holiday or something like that? But I felt that I was kind of in the groove and I wanted to keep training, and I wanted to stay in the mindset of playing. And I did, it kind of snowballed, and I did actually play well that year, and we had a lot of success as a team. But I think that was what helped me initially. But as I've reflected on that whole period, with the gift of foresight, with the gift of hindsight, I actually think the reason why it was such a good season was because it was so hard, the training beforehand for the World Cup. And even though the venture was unsuccessful being picked for it, it allowed me to be in the condition to have a really good season. So even though it was negative, or it seemed like a negative experience, that something very positive did come out of it, which, it took time for me to think. I didn't feel like that at the time. I felt incredibly frustrated and incredibly sad and angry. But, I think it's sort of, a silver lining, I suppose.
And also you carried on. You got all the benefits, as you say, of training at that level, which would have taken you to another level. And you continued playing, and you dealt with that disappointment. It is an emotional roller coaster. It's wins, losses, injuries, pressures. So I imagine you've developed. I mean, you've kind of touched upon this in the previous answer, but to keep that emotional balance of, the highs and the lows, is there a practice or something that you're using to keep yourself in that equilibrium? Anything else that you do?
So one of the biggest things that I did was stop listening to people, because what I did beforehand was I would look whenever I knew I'd had a good game, say, and the reviews would be positive in the press. I would look for what was being said. Whenever it was bad, I would like be afraid to look. And I sort of realized I shouldn't be doing that. You should be, if you're going to look at one, you should always look at the other. And then I
Mm.
started doing that, and it didn't actually help me at all. It didn't, even when what was being said was positive, it didn't help me. And I realized the only person you need to really, I suppose, keep sweet is the guy who's picking you and the guy who's giving you another contract. And I'm not like saying you should be like a brown nose or anything like that, but I mean the way you play will dictate whether you get signed again, whether you have a job effectively, and all the external noise. It doesn't matter really. I think that sort of is quite because we live in this age of like social media and stuff, and I have social media, I have Instagram and all this kind of thing. I think it can be a really good tool, can be used really well, but there's just so much noise in it and so much chatter. And I think I get very minimal compared to some rugby players and athletes as a whole.
What?
I think it's just important to drown the to just drown the noise out, and not worry about it, and not think about it, and just
Yeah,
whatever you need to do, just stay focused on it.
and I think it takes you outside of your own agency anyway. If you're hearing, oh, he did well, it was a pity, he's terrible, all of this stuff, which is, as you say,
Mm.
noise, that's probably the best word for it, which is opinion based anyway. It's not based on what you know. And that's the interesting thing in the day of Insta and
Mm.
Twitter, we get these sound bites of I know what's going on for that person when we actually don't. So
Yeah.
your, I guess, discipline of just deplugging from all that noise has helped.
Mm.
So, and maybe that's good for all of us, to deplug from some of the noise. I mean, I'm here in America. There's a lot of noise about the election. They just had a big debate
Mm.
yesterday, and there'll be, hundreds of people analyzing every gesture from both people, what it means, what it doesn't mean, with a
Mm.
completely different meaning, I guess. But back to you. You stay connecting. You stay connected to your passion, which is rugby. Is there dialing down the nose? Sorry, the noise, not the nose. The noise. What else do you do to keep your motivation and passion going? Maybe there's flat periods in your career too, where it's not really that exciting, but you need to keep your passion and motivation in check. Is there anything you do for that?
Uh, Not really, because I've always enjoyed it. To be fair, like I almost feel like when I'm nervous, I almost enjoy it more because the feeling I have is that it's very lucky that I get to, um, have these experiences, even though it might go badly and you might fall flat on your face and all that kind of thing. I still feel very privileged that I'm able to experience that because a lot of people go through their whole life without having any, just kind of staying in this like middle ground where nothing, it's neither good nor bad. It's just sort of monotonous
Mm.
and dull, to be honest with you. And I'm lucky that I don't have to, that I get to have these like, on a weekly basis and play and have these sort of really cool experiences. And yeah, and so it's never really been, the motivation's never really been a huge issue for me. But I do think that a lot of the time for players, it's their mind that goes before their body.
Mm.
Despite how attritional the game is, it's what's good about the sport is that it requires a real physical. You have to buy in, physically and emotionally, and be very involved in the game because they are hard game. The
Mm.
sport is hard, which is such a good aspect to it.
Well, it's
Um,
interesting that you've just picked up. It's the mind that goes before the body almost. It's almost that's what takes it's not just one aspect. It's the complete, it's that holistic mind, body, spirit, everything that you have to throw into this game to deliver.
yeah,
But
yeah,
um
because it's so physical. The nature of the game is, and it's sort of because we play so many games, people don't really. I don't think it's particularly acknowledged, but it is an incredibly physically challenging game. Very,
uh,
it
uh,
is. It is. It's difficult, and
I
yeah, I
I
suppose. So go on.
I've heard that it is the most demanding of all the games. It's like American football. It's this high impact. There's a lot of danger involved. There's a lot of risk involved.
Mm.
So let's talk about that. Maybe discuss the physical discipline, because there's a huge commitment to that. We've talked about your own philosophy, not too deeply about that, but some of the things you do, some of the ways you've managed. But there's the physical discipline to stay top of your game. And how have you maintained to stay in the peak condition for many years?
Peak condition.
Well,
I
I'm just making an
wouldn't say I'm quite
assumption.
yet. So thank you very much. No, the way that I can't remember who. There's a guy who I used to listen to when I was younger at university. His name was Elliot Hulse. And this is sort of the same with coaches or people that I used to have listened to online or anything like that. I always feel that you can take from most people, you can take a little bit of information from, even if you disagree with their core message or some of their message or something like this. And he said, Elliot Hulse, that motivation will always be trumped by discipline, because, and a lot of people say this nowadays. Is, he might not be the first person, but it's very easy when you get the first week of a new program or a new club or a new city to live in, or sometimes it's very easy to feel motivated. But the people who are really successful are just the ones who can just grind it out and just do it for 5, 6, 7, 10 years. So a lot of the time, you're not going to feel like, incredibly buzzing to do a conditioning session, or, or go in the ice bath, and all these sort of things. But it's just bloody mindedness, I suppose. Okay, well, not bloody mindedness, but just accepting that it's part of the job and you have to do it. So it's almost being robotic about it in a way, because you're not always going to feel super psyched to do something, but you just realize that you have to.
And that discipline you mentioned, I mean, it seems like a number of athletes have mentioned it's not waiting for the feeling, like I can't be bothered to do this. It's you do it anyway, which is almost in spite of you do this. So are there other practices you do to keep yourself in shape? I'm thinking of any other things you do. I mean, I know diet, recovery, working with the with the physical therapist possibly, but are there some things that you say this has really helped me?Maybe some diet that you've done, or some extra things that you've done including in your training?
Generally with diet, and what I've found is just more that it's the same thing. Like, it reduces the inflammation. Would be just eating things that are sort of a more paleo approach, I suppose. You just eat like non-processed food as much as you can. So vegetables, fruit, and a lot of meat, red meat, mainly, has been sort of the cornerstone of it. But then something else would be just getting outdoors and going into nature. I think is good for everyone, because it just sort of, I don't know, it feels, if you go for a walk around in the woods, or you you jump in a river or something like that, it's very hard to feel. Most people don't ever regret doing that. Like, you go and do it and you feel really good afterwards. And I just think it helps you just from getting like wound so tight, which can be the case with any job really. And then if you are gonna, and I just say, sample stuff, try it, and if you feel like it's something that you can continue to do, then keep it. But if it's something that you get tired of or want, then you can just like move it on. You should always feel, when trying anything, I think you should, if you want to keep it on, you should feel like you could do it, sustainably for a long period of time.
Yes, and I know that you had a recent injury. I think it was your knee, wasn't it?
Yeah, I did. Or it was a year and a half ago. I did my ACL. I ruptured my ACL.
And I hear that you made a remarkable recovery. A remarkable,
It was
quite a
quick,
speedy,
quite
quite a speedy one. And I know that you incorporated some things that maybe some people wouldn't consider that important, but you did it. If you just want to share with the readers some of the other things you did to help with your recovery of that major operation that could have taken you out for a long time.
It wasn't. I think it was. My attitude to it was that the period, straight after the op, immediately after the op, was very important. So I had to get everything very dialed in from the get go. And to be fair, I had a lot of people who really helped me, because it was quite a big operation. My parents came and they sort of looked after me and made me food and stuff like that. But then I was very conscious of the fact that whatever I was eating, whatever I was doing at that time would have a huge impact. It was the same as like, when children are first born, they say that they have a huge impact. The things you do when they're first come into
Mm.
the world. I kind of felt like that a little bit because I was in such a state of like stress and inflammation that any small thing could have like a real positive impact, a real negative impact. So just like eating like really good quality food, a lot of bone broth, um, loads of supplements, ape nutrition supplements.
Yeah, we'll give a shout out to Josh there,
Yes,
because I know he's got some wonderful
Josh, yes,
products that you've consumed there.
Josh,
Yeah.
ape nutrition, and then I just immediately got onto sort of the mobility. I think I was in the club about 3 days after having the op back in Exeter,
Wow.
and there's a guy, Alex Holland, um, who helped me with the first stages after the op. Axe Rugby, he's called on Instagram, was really really good. Gave me some really good exercises and stuff like that, and just got the mobility and movement into it. And it was quick, to be fair. It was good. I think moving to France helped as well, weirdly, because I think being in the heat just made me feel better, so it helped to heal.
I get a sense, Harry, from talking to you about what you do to maintain your, let's say, your body through this sport, is you have a very holistic approach. It is mind, body, and spirit. And I know that this is important to you, this part, that you feel connected to something else. And I know that you also you do various practices that help you stay grounded. So if you can just say the things that have helped you in that domain, any meditations you use or any other practices that you've incorporated as well in that, and maybe also that belief that you had. I'd like to touch upon that. You said, I knew that this was right for me, which is nobody told you. It was something that you came
Mm.
up with. So some of the practices and what you've cultivated, what would they be?
It would be sort of, well, I suppose, the things I've mentioned before, but my sort of belief in, I've always felt that there was something above, you know, like this reality and this experience, and I don't really know what that was, and it's been something that it's been a lifelong um, interest of mine, I'd say. So when I was younger, my early 20s or whatever, rugby was always very much like, my primary objective, but there was also a lot of distraction, I suppose, partying and going out and having a good time, having fun or whatever. Sort of like, not got, I suppose, yeah, you could say got in the way a little bit of thinking about it because there's always just stuff to, occupy your interest. But then it's something that, as I've gotten older, I've continued to think about. And it's, I don't know, it sort of ends in, belief in God, belief in a higher power, belief that almost predetermination that you need to be. And it's really, really hard to explain. I'm not doing a particularly good job, but it's like if you're almost like everyone on the planet is given something that they're good at. They're given like you know, a power, I suppose, something that they can, achieve. And when you find that, it's almost like you're doing a disservice to your creator if you
Mm.
don't do everything you can to achieve that. It's almost like you're squandering this gift you have, and that's always kind of what stayed in my mind. And other stuff that's kept me grounded, I suppose, would be like praying, on top of like not really like visualization, meditation. It never really worked for me that much, but just sort of sitting with myself and then monitoring the breathing and stuff like that has been helping. Then just gratitude really, and realizing that even though things are negative, generally there are just it's not there's never really a negative or a positive experience. It's just an experience, and it's your
Mm.
perception of things
Well, as
that
they maybe the Buddha or Eckhart Tolle, I don't remember. It's our attachments, or it's
yeah
the suffering comes from the attachment to the outcome. Often, we have this. I didn't ask you about goal, but we have this goal, and it must happen. And if it doesn't happen the way we imagine it or think it, then there's a lot of suffering attached to it.
yeah
But if there's this,
um,
would you agree to that?
I
Or do
definitely
you
agree
feel
to that,
that?
and
Yeah.
it was never I never and I'd say putting parameters on things like, oh, And this is what I found. I myself fall into this, and what I found with a lot of people is they have an idea of like, when this happens, I'll be happy, or when I
Mm.
get to this point, I'll be happy. And I myself thought, oh, if I win this game, I'll be happy. If I get this contract, I'll then be happy. And it is very fleeting. You have to find enjoyment in the sort of the minute, not minute is the wrong word, in the day to day of just the process of doing it. And success can look different, and it will look different as your career goes on, because you're not always going to be as young, as have as much vitality as you are when you're sort of like a younger person. You need to just enjoy the day to day, because
And
you're
I
never
think,
going to find it. Sorry, Joanna.
no, absolutely. And I think that you mentioned that appreciation and gratitude, and it can be very tough when you think, oh, that's not fair. Why is this happening to me? I've worked so hard. That's definitely my mantra. Work so hard. It shouldn't happen to me. And then you think, well, who said it wasn't going to happen to me? And when you
No.
turn your mind to what can I appreciate, the in breath, and what can I be grateful for, the out breath, I
Mm.
guess it loosens a bit of the attachment a little bit to the outcome without losing all the optimism.
I'd definitely say so. And I don't think you sort of. I don't personally feel like, because there's a lot of people. I think you can sort of, if you start thinking about things more holistically, you say people can become these kind of like, it can go one of two ways a little bit. You can become these like very, very stoic, where you don't really, you're sort of always in the middle. You're never too sad, you're never too happy. You can become these kind of like ecstatically happy, love and light people, singing Hare Krishna in a pair of white linen trousers. And I don't really, neither of those kind of avenues really ever work for me. I think you have to just, you know, experience happiness and sadness and anger and all these things, because you're just experiencing things in the 3D plane effect. And it's not, just feel into it, and it is what it is, I suppose.
And I really like the way you say is just feel into it and not try to avoid disappointment, not try to dress it up, not try to say, oh, I didn't feel that, but not kind of cling on to it at the same time, not to get attached to the drama too much.
Mm.
Yeah. So one of the things about what you do, it's a game.
Yeah.
It's a game with two
It is, yeah.
sides. I imagine there's a lot of creativity in the moment stuff that happens on the field. You might have your game plan, imagine you do, and the coach says we do this, but there's also amount of creativity or innovation in the game. Do you experience that in the moment, or do you just stick to the plan? I'm just interested to know how you pivot when, oh, I didn't expect that person to do that, or the ball to be there, or whatever it happens. How do you deal with that? With it, or I don't want to do it here. I have to make something up.
Well, I'm not actually that a particularly creative player. I sort
Okay.
of, I've kind of,
No,
but
maybe
like,
it's a
no, but I I would say, as far as like the feeling, having the freedom to, like, feeling free on the field, and having freedom to express yourself. There's a fellow I went to uni with, actually, called Callum Wilson, who spoke about this, and it really resonated when he said it. That whatever game you're playing, you will either be successful or unsuccessful at it. So if the game you're playing is, I just want to, make no mistakes, and I want to have a clean game, and I don't want to, I don't want to make any errors. If you even if you do, even if you win that game, that's all you're going to get. You're not going to have like a standout performance like that or anything like this. So in order to, have freedom to play and freedom to express yourself on the field, you have to accept that it might go badly for you. Sort of don't, but the prize at the end of it is greater than sort of, you have like sort of tightness and just rigidity of, I don't want to mess up effectively. I think a lot of that is ridding yourself of thinking about what other people are going to say about you, which isn't just the case in rugby, really. I think it's the case in anything. If you're worried about what other people are thinking, about what other people are going to say about you, or if you're worried about someone's going to say, oh, he's shit, he doesn't deserve to play this, or you know he's no good, or the fans are thinking, it's never going to benefit you. Just worry about yourself, worry about what you can control, and then if it doesn't go well, it doesn't go well. It really isn't the end of the world. With anything, rugby,
so. Yeah, I'm
anything like
hearing
that.
that you've got you've garnered a sense of perspective throughout this.
I've
Oh,
tried to, yeah, I've
yeah,
tried to.
a sense of perspective. So one of the things about playing is managing, I guess, your brand. It's a popular word. Do
Yeah.
you have one? Do you cultivate one? Or is it just kind of appeared out of, it's just been, oh, that's Harry. I'm just interested to know, is that something you think, how do I stand? Have you cultivated it on purpose? Has it just happened to be part of who you are, a part of your character?
Not like genuinely, not really. Like I was actually had an interview the other day, and I don't know that someone said to me in an interview, was like, "Oh, I thought because you had long hair and tattoos and stuff, you'd be really extroverted." He was a French guy. I think he was a bit was lost in translation, and I'm not particularly. I just sort of I don't really. I just enjoy playing the game. To be honest with you, I've never really been that good at marketing myself. Some people, it comes really easily to some players, but I just never really been able to do it. I just find it embarrassing, to be honest. So no, I suppose the brand is maybe I could quit. It's never really happened for me. I've never put any effort into doing it. So I
Well,
can't
what I
really.
know about you is if you like something, you'll do it, and again,
Yeah,
I like my hair like this. I like these tattoos. You're doing it for you rather than to be marketing any messages in particular. It's definitely,
yeah.
that's what I know about you. And it's why I asked that question. What was the best? You mentioned a role model before, um, about the mindset. Really, have there been other and Wim Hof? I guess he is one too. Have there been any other models that have been really important on your professional journey?
I'd say starting out, I think my mum and dad, I think,
Mm.
big role models because different reasons really. Um, my dad always had his attitude to work. I always thought was very, um, I don't know, I garnered a lot of admiration from me because there were times when it was hard and it was very difficult for him, but he just sort of continued to, to do what he had to. And I always admired my mum very well, Cathy. Her
Mm.
sort of attitude to life, I think, is she's just got a very chipper demeanor, and she's sort of, she's very glass half full. Um, and it's just, I don't know, it's nice to be around. So I'd say for different reasons, those two. But
Well,
sports people, not. Oh,
definitely.
sorry.
I just say that she's incredibly grounded and incredibly, I say, very cheerful, very grounded, and very positive on the whole. Which doesn't mean that she just, she knows what you do is really tough, but she
Yeah,
knows
no,
she
yeah,
love it. She knows you love it. So
but she's sort of, it's just she's very same with any. She's with me or my friends or my sister's friends or anyone like that. She's always she just has a nice, way about her, and it's quite infectious and it's nice to be around. So I suppose that. But then sports people, not really. Like, a lot of people young, because we had a very good generation of England players, um, who was when I was a kid. They won the when I was a child. So I shouldn't say kid. When I was a child, they won the World Cup, and it was a lot to, there's a lot of people to idolize there, but I never really had that sort of feeling. I always just felt when I was watching them that I wanted to do it myself. It was never like I never looked up to them. It was that I wanted to do it.
so what's the best advice you've ever received?
Mm.
Or a piece of
This is
advice that has
no,
stayed with
there's a
you?
few.
Mm.
Is this to reference something that I said earlier? Um, with people you come across, you can always take tidbits of what they've said. And there's been
Mm.
different coaches that I've had throughout my career. They've given me like little pieces of advice, and two of the ones that I've always stuck with was that my coach at school was a guy called Chris Wilkins, who said to me, "All you have to do is improve every year, just improve every season, just a little bit. So it's like incremental improvements over time, and eventually you'll get to where you need to." So I've always sort of held that in my mind, and I actually saw him in February for the first time in years. I spoke to him about that because he said that to me when I was 15 years old, and I'm 33 in 3 weeks' time,
Mm.
and it's still in my mind now. So obviously from a coaching standpoint, I suppose you say that's incredibly effective. And another bit of advice I got was from Steve Bowden, who was a coach I had at Jersey, who said you don't have to do a lot right, but what you have to just do but what you do right, do it very well, which I actually think is quite good advice to have for anyone, because what he was saying was don't try and be the best at everything. Just realize what your strengths are, what you're good at, and just do them maximally. And and then so it's like you literally, as a player in my position, you have to scrummage, be good in the other set pieces, and then you probably have to do one other thing well, tackling or clearing rucks, and that's really about it. And you can have a career from doing that. So it's like don't try and do everything well. Just find what you're good at and be the best at that.
And although I'm sure you acknowledge the things that maybe you don't do so well in the game, I'm sure you know that. And I know from working with leaders for a number of years, it's do what right. And that self-awareness is so important of what your real skill set is, how you develop those talents and skills, and awareness of the things you maybe could improve without as you say, without trying to do everything well. That's very smart, I think. So imagine there was a young boy or girl listening to this, thinking, I'd love to be a rugby player. What advice would you give to them?
Mm. I'd say just don't just keep moving forward. No, that's pretty cheesy. It sounds like something from Rocky. Uh, like no, I wouldn't say that. Scratch that. I would say like don't get too wrapped up in the negative is what I'd say, because and this is something the game needs to address, in my opinion, is there's a lot of shit coaches, excuse my language, um, floating around, and it's important to identify who they are and not listen to them and just enjoy the game. Don't get too wrapped up in mistakes and negativity. And if you believe you can do something, then just do it as hard as you can. Like, and and just stay the course is what I would say. And realize that, and also that if something bad happens, it's not always it was meant to happen like that. Don't that isn't actually something's just come into my head that another piece of advice I had. There's a friend of mine called Jamie Harkin said that you're more than just someone who plays rugby matches, which also sort of really stood out to me because it's true. You're a human being. There's a lot more to you than just how well you do in 80 minutes on a rugby field. So he doesn't care. He's not a rugby fan particularly. He's always said to me, "Oh, I don't really care how it is. I want to know how you're doing and how you are as a person." So, and that's good advice as well.
Well, if you're visible, whatever sport you play, and we just had the Olympics, there is that message to the younger generation. This is possible, I guess. This is possible. And it comes with commitment and dedication and a belief system, and you're human. So go for it. That's what I'm hearing. So if you look back, some key moments in your career which will stay with you, from your debut to England to winning the championship, what would you say in your career has been your standout moment? And it might not be what people expect. That's why I asked that question.
I think it would be just I'm going to say three. No, I'm going to say two. The first one
you can say as many as you like, Harry. We'll go for two.
The first one I actually found out that Exeter initially wanted to sign me through Facebook Messenger. I don't even have Facebook anymore. And a guy who I was playing with said, "Oh, Rob Baxter was asking for your phone number." Rob Baxter's the coach at Exeter, and it got set up through that. And I remember flying over from Jersey to Exeter on my day off, and I looked around at Sandy Park, which is where Exeter play, and I remember just having this feeling when I was there, as like I sort of arrived. It wasn't through being an academy; it was through playing, and and someone had identified me, and he wanted to sign me off the back of like playing games. Not through like I'd just been there for a long time or anything like that. It was purely off the back of the performances. And I remember like seeing the setup, seeing how professional it was, and seeing the gym, and they were going through my clips. I just remember feeling like this is where I've always wanted to be and what I've always wanted to do, and this is the first step on the journey, effectively, playing at the top level. And then I think the second would be winning the first Premiership with Exeter, which was actually the next. It was my second season, so it was quite early on. I just remember thinking, like, like I couldn't. It was more just like disbelief because it had
Mm.
just been so. It happened a lot earlier than I thought it was, and I thought it was going to, and it was just crazy. I remember, like, because the thing is that we won in 2020. We won the double. We won the European Cup and the Premiership, but there were no crowds or anything like that, and it did. If I'm being brutally honest, it probably did diminish the experience like a little bit because after that 2017 game, all my family was there, all my friends were there, and I remember just the crowd, and it was like a hot day in Twickenham. It was just amazing, and I just remember sort of feeling like the whole thing had just kind of come full circle. And you know, I played for England after that as well. Straight after that, playing in the finals, so that whole year was just surreal, and I always look back on that very fondly because that group of people that were at Exeter were just so tight. Like and I do feel like it is hard to replicate that in a team. And credit to Rob, I suppose, really the coach because he did bring the group together. So it
And
was
with any team, where there's deep relationships, there's deep trust
yeah.
that you've conquered something together, which is,
Mm.
you win or lose rugby, I guess, like any game, but you've conquered something together. Those bonds just deepen. You know each other. You can trust each other. You've got each other's backs. There's an element of that, I guess, as well.
Yeah, no, I'd definitely say so. And I think it's probably one of the most enjoyable things about playing a team sport because it definitely has its downsides,
Mm.
which I can understand because I really enjoy MMA, mixed martial arts. And what a lot of the fighters say is they don't want to put their fate in someone else's hands, which
Mm.
is what you're doing effectively in a team. Everyone has to do their job, but when the feeling of winning as a team together is honestly, I don't think if you could bottle that feeling, you could sell it for millions because it's so sweet and it's like you're all together and you're all experiencing it together. And it's like you've gone through, it doesn't happen by accident. You've gone through all these sort of trials and tribulations and come out, victorious as a group. And it's so, I don't think, I think it's impossible to replicate.
Mm.
It's something that I finish when I finish playing is, I'll miss it. And I think speaking to lads who don't play anymore when they're retired is something they do miss. And, unfortunately, I just think that's part and parcel of not being involved anymore,
Amazing, amazing. So moving to maybe as you progress your career to maybe the next stage when you don't play rugby anymore. I know you might be thinking, well, that's a way off, Cathy. But
And
is
yeah,
there any,
God willing.
there is, and I know it is a way off for you, but is there any thoughts about how all the skills that you've learned, all the mindset and the heart set as well, that you've learned through this game, you're thinking, there may be a career that I'd like to pick up. I'm interested in that beyond the game.
Um, I'm really not sure, to be honest with you. Like, I don't know if I want to stay working in the game.
Mm.
Maybe that will change, if the time sort of comes around. And I don't know where I'm going to end up living either. Whether I'll go back to England or live in another country or stay in France. Like, I really am not sure. Um, so I'm not. I would definitely like to work with people,
Mm.
and whatever it is I decide to do, it's just something I'm kind of letting God show me the way, I suppose.
Love
Because
it.
at the minute I'm not 100% sure, and I when I do know, and when I've figured it out, I'll just go at it 100%.
Well, I know that you're not intending to retire anytime soon from the last conversation we had.
No, no, no.
I've got a bit of a lighter question here, which is I know you do you still bake? Because I know that was one of your interests.
No,
Is that something you still do?
no, I never really baked. I used to tweet about the Bake Off when
Ah,
I had
okay.
Twitter, and then it kind of like snowed. Maybe I should have kept doing that because obviously, talking about branding, that would have actually been quite a good thing to do. I was actually ahead of the curve. No one really used to do social media commentaries, uh, but no, I never really baked. The thing is that the information about me online, because no one's done any articles on me for like years, the
Yeah, but
information's
that's
quite
what
outdated. The information's like 10 years old.
I think I know you quite well, Harry, and I thought,
Yeah, yeah.
baking, does he bake? And I picked that piece of information up, and so thank you for sorting out that. But I do know you
No.
like music. That's still
Yeah.
a big love of yours. So what are you listening to lately, or in this
It's just
period?
basically since summer, it's just been very, very repetitive music, which is I do really like. Yeah, repetitive music. Since going to a few sort of like parties and raves in the summer, that's sort of been what I listen to. I'm super setting that with listening to the Game of Thrones audiobook, which
Okay.
is so good. I can't. George R. R. Martin wrote a very, very good book there, I must say. Um, but yeah, if we just talk about music, it would be anything. I can't listen to easy listening music. It has to be something which makes me feel some kind of way, either emotional or like charged up or angry or something. But I just people do listen to sort of like elevator music, like trying to give an example. Who would be like Jack Johnson, that kind of thing. I don't really get that. I don't really get that how people listen to that. To be honest with you,
So it's
do you like Jack
music.
Johnson?
I don't really, but I'm sure he's a very talented artist.
No,
So
it is Italian, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
But it's the resonance of the feeling that comes through the music, and something we've talked about is that there's almost a beat in the music and there's a frequency in the music that actually has an impact on us as well.
I'd say so, yeah. No, definitely, I'll agree. As I've got the whole, well, we're electrical beings, right? So we are governed by sound. So I think if you're taking that on another level, it's like if people's voices are also sound, so your internal voice to yourself, will make its own sort of noise. So the way you speak to yourself, will have an impact on the way you see the world. If you're always like speaking down about yourself, and you have this like negative voice in your head about everything, it's going to affect you negatively. So, try not to do that, I suppose.
Yeah, there is a voice going on in most people's head most of the time, and we wonder if that voice is really supporting one or it's kind of working against you. But there's also something within the voice which I think changes through time as well.
Yeah.
Harry, I've
Yeah.
loved this interview with you. Thank you for sharing
That's
what
been
you
great.
have done.
Thanks very much for having me.
No,
Genuinely.
it's been wonderful. So that Harry Williams has been our guest. Please like, subscribe, and we will catch you in the next one. And I'm going to leave some details about Harry in the show notes that he will provide for me. So thank you for listening and join me on the next one. Join us on the next one. That's a wrap for today's episode of the RebChat. We really hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for joining us. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share the episode with your friends. Until then, and until the next episode, keep well and goodbye for now.